Hey everyone, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Well everybody, today we're going to go into the second entry in Disney's animated Cinderella trilogy. Now, almost everybody knows that Disney's direct-to-video sequel collection began in 1994 with The Return of Jafar, and it ended in 2008 with The Little Mermaid Ariel's Beginning. Now, in my opinion, I don't really mind these sequels and prequels, mostly, mainly due to the fact that they bring back fond memories from the original movies, but I still stand by that Beauty and the Beast, Belle's Magical World, and The Fox and the Hound 2 are the absolute worst Disney sequels ever, as said in my top 13 films that I hate. Anyway, let's take a look at Cinderella's first direct-to-video sequel and see what I think about it. So, released to video and DVD on February 26, 2002, the movie is Cinderella 2: Dreams Come True. Now, in this movie, Fairy Godmother, along with Jock, Gus, and the other mice, gather together to make a special book to narrate about what happened after Cinderella's happily ever after by stringing 3 segments of stories together into one narrative. So, that's basically the whole plot in a nutshell. So, what do I think of it? Well, I wouldn't technically call it quote-unquote bad, but at the same time, it's not really one of my favorites either. But, on the positive side, I think it makes a decent watch just sometimes. And to further explain why I think so, let's move on to Mustang notes. Now, there's not too much trivia to talk about, other than the fact that despite the mostly negative reception, this movie was Disney's top-selling animated sequel during 2002, grossing approximately $120 million in DVD sales. And it was also the first Cinderella movie in the trilogy to use digital ink and paint animation. And in my opinion, the digital ink and paint animation looks pretty good. However, it kind of looks a bit reminiscent to several Disney Channel cartoons that I used to watch during my childhood. Still, it's not too bad though. Plus, not only does the character animation look good, but I like the look of Cinderella's new home at the Royal Palace, along with her old home at the Tremaine Chateau, and I think the village looks great too, even better than the version that Aqua had to journey through in the Realm of Darkness. Also, I think, after watching this movie again, I kind of get the feeling that a couple of the segments in this movie might be the reason why Cinderella was the first Disney princess to be summoned by Princess Elena via the Amulet of Avalor to help Princess Sophia. Speaking of segments, let's talk about each of these stories one by one and see what I think about them. Our first story is Aim to Please. In this, Cinderella and her husband, Prince Henry, return from their honeymoon, and Cinderella reunites with her mice friends and her dog Bruno. She is later put in charge of the palace banquets and parties while her father-in-law and her husband are away on royal affairs. However, Cinderella is dissatisfied with the emphasis on tradition, and she decides to organize the upcoming party in her own special way. Although he initially seems to be shocked at Cinderella's changes, the king ends up being satisfied with the party overall. Now, in my opinion, I think this segment is pretty good, and it makes a pretty good pilot to a TV show that, sadly, this franchise never received. And nowadays, it feels pretty similar to several episodes from Sophia the First, like Once Upon a Princess, since Cinderella is a princess in training, and Tea for Too Many, due to Cinderella showing her new family what she can do when it comes to organizing a party. Next is Tall Tale. In this story, Jock is not very happy because he thinks he is too small to help Cinderella at the palace. So, Fairy Godmother turns him into a human named Sir Hugh so he can help out. However, this does not stop the palace cat Pom Pom from chasing Jock around. Thankfully, after an incident with an elephant at the spring fair, Jock learns to be happy as a mouse. Now, in my opinion, this segment is okay, since I still think that Jock and the other mice steal the whole show from me. However, here, this is basically about Jock learning to be happy for who he truly is and what he's meant to do, and that he already had what he needed all along. And finally, we come to our last segment, an uncommon romance. Here, Cinderella's stepsister, Anastasia, falls in love with a baker named Lathan, of whom her mother, Lady Tremaine, and her older sister, Drizella, disapprove of. Cinderella, unbeknownst to anyone else, arrives and secretly watches as Lady Tremaine berates Anastasia, thus leading her to help Anastasia in getting ready for the ball together. Later at the ball, Anastasia thanks Cinderella for helping her. At the same time, Lucifer also has an encounter with Pom Pom, with whom he falls in love with. Now, in my opinion, this is my absolute favorite segment in the entire movie. Not only because it's about two villains who find a love interest, but it's also about two sisters who make amends with each other. And now let's talk about the songs, which are all sung by Brooke Allison. However, for right now, I'm only going to talk about 3 of them. First, there's Follow Your Heart, which is sung when Cinderella decides to plan out the royal banquet, beginning with sending invitations to the villagers. To me, this song is very fitting to Cinderella's character due to her faith and passion. Plus, I like when Cinderella and the mice make chocolate pudding and make other changes to the castle. Next, there's The World Is Looking Up to You, which is sung while Jock is enjoying his time as a human. In my opinion, this song is very optimistic and nice to listen to on a bright sunny day. However, at the same time, it becomes pretty funny when Pom Pom constantly tries to attack Jock. Finally, there's It's What's Inside That Counts, which is sung when both Anastasia and Lucifer get a makeover from both Cinderella and the mice respectively, so that both of them could impress their respective love interests. In my opinion, this is another great song to listen to. Despite some of the verses being a bit flashy, I think this song has a nice message about beauty being found inside than out. And now, let's move on to the characters and their voice actors. Cinderella is voiced by veteran voice actress Jennifer Hale, whom was in the Powerpuff Girls show, Totally Spies, Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, and Codename Kids Next Door. In my opinion, Cinderella's role is similar but different from the first movie. She's now a princess and has a new family, but she still has that brave, kind, helpful, hardworking, and optimistic personality she had in the first film. And I like that Cinderella still has faith, believing that anything is possible. Plus, I think Jennifer Hale does a sweet performance while voicing her. Cinderella's husband, Prince Henry, is voiced by Christopher Daniel Barnes, who voiced Prince Eric in The Little Mermaid, and he voiced Spider-Man in Spider-Man the Animated Series. Like in the first movie, Henry doesn't really have a big role in this, but I like the fact that after seeing the party that Cinderella has planned, he feels very impressed, and he knows that Cinderella will be a great princess for the kingdom. Next are Cinderella's mice friends, Jock and Gus. Jock is voiced by Rob Paulsen, and Gus is voiced by Corey Burton. As I previously stated, these two are my favorite characters in the Cinderella trilogy. In this movie, not only do they work with Fairy Godmother to construct a new book for Cinderella, but they also help her during her princess training, they help her plan her first ball, and they even try to help Lucifer impress Pom Pom on the condition that he wouldn't chase them anymore. Also, during the second segment, I like that Jock learned to accept himself as a mouse, and I thought he was very brave to stop a rampaging elephant. Plus, while it was interesting seeing him as a human, I think Jock as Sir Hugh is pretty much a klutz. Next we have Mary Mouse, voiced by the late Minnie Mouse actress Russi Taylor.
Oh, seriously? Why'd she have to die 3 years ago?
Anyway, mostly everybody knows that Mary was one of the several mice who helped Jock and Gus fix up Cinderella's dress in the first film. But in this movie, Mary is given more character development. You see, it's actually revealed that she's Jock's girlfriend, and in my opinion, Mary is a very concerned and caring mouse who longed to see her Jock happy, and I think it was very sweet of her to make a dashing jacket for him. Next we have Fairy Godmother, also voiced by Russi Taylor. In this movie, aside from helping the mice in creating their book, she offers to help Jock by turning him into a human so that he can help Cinderella. Next is Cinderella's stepsister, Anastasia, voiced by Tress MacNeille, who's not only known for being the current Daisy Duck, but she's also voiced Babs Bunny from Tiny Toon Adventures, Dot Warner from Animaniacs, Chip and Gadget Hackwrench from Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, and Osono from Kiki's Delivery Service. In this movie, Anastasia is the main character during the third segment. She goes from a spoiled brat to a smitten kitten after catching the eye of the village baker, which, in my eyes, seems like a nice change in her character. Plus, I like that Cinderella helps Anastasia by encouraging her to follow her heart and by giving her a makeover. Next is Lady Tremaine's cat, Lucifer, vocalized by Frank Welker. During the movie's third segment, Lucifer falls in love with the snobby palace cat, Pom Pom, to the point that he makes a deal with the mice never to chase them again if they help him win over Pom Pom, which sadly doesn't go too well. And now to move on to the new characters, starting with Lathan the Baker, also voiced by Rob Paulsen. I find this guy to be a kind and rather shy character who seems to be a bit unsure of himself, but at the same time, he's willing to stand up against people like Lady Tremaine for Anastasia's sake. Plus, Lathan is dedicated to his work as his bakery is well kept, and he is shown working earnestly. And above all, he seems like a sweet love interest for Anastasia. Next up is the castle cat, Pom Pom, also vocalized by Frank Welker. Pom Pom is a recurring minor antagonist in this movie, like how Lucifer was in the first film. In my opinion, Pom Pom is an arrogant, snobbish, and rude cat who has no feelings towards anybody except herself. But on the other hand, she can be loving, but only when it benefits her. The last character to talk about is Prudence, voiced by Holland Taylor, whom I remember from George of the Jungle and 2 of the Spy Kids sequels. Now, Prudence is in charge of all the castle servants, and in my opinion, she's the only character in the sequels that I really don't enjoy. In this film, she's tasked to teach Cinderella how to act like a proper princess while planning the royal banquet. The reason why I don't really like Prudence is because she's so sharp, traditional, snobbish, and pompous, and she doesn't feel comfortable with Cinderella's changes until later when the king approves of them. But on the positive side, I think Cinderella's ladies-in-waiting, Beatrice and Daphne, whom Prudence assigns to her, are decent and fun supporting characters. Other characters in the film include the Grand Duke, also voiced by Rob Paulsen, the King, voiced by Andrei Stojka, Drizella, also voiced by Russi Taylor, and Lady Tremaine, voiced by Suzanne Blakesley. And now let's move on to my final words. Overall, Cinderella 2 Dreams Come True is not technically a bad movie in my opinion, but at the same time, I can understand that it's not really the kind of Disney sequel that fans were hoping for during the early 2000s. However, on the positive side, the animation is pretty good. The original characters are equally as memorable and lovable as they were in the first film. Some of the new characters are pretty decent, except Prudence. The voice acting is entertaining, and by watching the 3 segments, it makes an okay triple feature, in a way. And I also find it to be a very promising movie aimed mainly for little kids. So my rating for this movie will be a 62% out of 100. It's not really bad, it's not really great either, but still, I would give this movie more than one watch just once in a while. Anyway, that's all for now. Join me next time as we look at Cinderella's third and final animated movie. To be continued.